book kind of starts off a little slow, and that's why I kind of wanted to start in like chapter 5. But listen and read chapter 1 just so you can kind of hear the main character's voice and kind of get to know her. Uh, but I am dressed as Autumn Hayes, the main character from my book, and she is a 17-year-old white girl from Chicago, and I clearly do not look like that, so wig and makeup, I tried. But my book's sitting here, but I'm going to be reading the ebook version on my little handy dandy iPad, because pages and me dropping books, oh yeah, that's probably not a good idea. I'm really clumsy. So, but hey, LaShawn, Natalie, Steve, Bill. But I'll get started here. I don't want to make y'all wait all night. Anyways, like I said, this is starting midway through chapter 5. I'm going to read a few pages, and then I will go back to chapter 1 if anybody wants to kind of listen to that part. So, but anyways, don't laugh if I stumble over words. Here I go. I curiously studied the restaurant while I ate, hoping to find a familiar face. Peering over my left shoulder, I noticed two men, one with long blonde hair wearing a burgundy coat, the other a brunette wearing a leather jacket. They sat in the corner with their eyes on me. I turned away. The way they looked at me was startling. Over my right shoulder, I noticed another pair of harsh, staring eyes belonging to a man of possibly Hawaiian descent, but he looked away the second I spotted him. He had held that same constant stare as the others in their rigid face. Through the corner of my eye, I found a woman in a fitted jade green sweater sitting by the door. I only noticed her because I caught her shooting me piercing glances. Sorry, I'm getting nervous. Our eyes met. Something started to change on her face. Her eyes, they appeared to eerily fog over. Even sitting as far away as I was, I could see it. It began deep within her pupils and then radiated over her irises. It took me a few seconds to realize they were glowing like two little orbs of light. Taking a sharp breath, I tore my eyes away from her in a panic. No, not again, I thought, and put my face in my hands. But I had to be sure. I peered back only to find her face changing, warping. I didn't watch long enough to see the extent of it. I spun away, got up from the bar stool, and briskly walked out of that place like I'd dined and dashed. Outside, I had to stop and take a breath. I'd unintentionally held it all the way out the door. I'm going crazy, I huffed to myself. A knot embedded itself in my throat. I felt the warm sweat break out across my face and my lower back. I held my head in my hands before swishing my hair into my face, pacing myself. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. A whisper distracted me. Not wanting to wait around any longer, I ignored it and started towards my car. While digging for my car keys, I heard it again. It sounded like Tresma or some kind of gibberish, only this time it was more like a hiss and much closer than before. I don't have any cash, I said in a harsh tone as I drew closer to my car, assuming it was a panhandler. I pulled my keys out with my free hand. I took Jacoby's pocket knife from my purse where I'd left it since it was given to me. I'm getting nervous, I'm sorry. I pressed on the thumbscrew and the blade extended. A hissing rose from the alleyway. I whirled around. Someone appeared around the corner of the restaurant. The closer he got, the clearer it was that something was off. His eyes, they reminded me of something I'd seen in a wildlife documentary once. A team of activists filming a tigress and her cubs late at night, and when the camera's lights hit the animals' faces, their eyes refracted it, causing their pupils to hauntingly glow. It was similar to the way this man's eyes appeared from where I stood, and it scared the living hell out of me. All I could see were these foggy eyes out of the shadows, and I knew it was him, one of the figures who'd been stalking me for days. I fumbled with my keys to find the one belonging to my car, but accidentally dropped the keyring. Plucking the keys off the ground, I cursed and mashed the unlock button on my keypad. I swung the door open, jumped in, slammed the door shut, and started the engine all in what felt like one swift motion. I took one last glance at the restaurant through my passenger side window, as I took my car out of park. When I rolled back to drive off, I found the man standing at my window's driver's side. I didn't even stop to wonder how he'd moved so fast from the building to the other side of my car. Instead, I hit the gas. I just lost my place. I hit the gas and sped off with screeching tires. I shivered out of both relief and shock, a delayed reaction. I checked my rearview mirror, but he was gone. I fastened the pocket knife to my waistband of my jeans and drove off. There was nothing I could think of that would explain what had happened. It felt like a nightmare. It had to be a nightmare. As I tried to make sense of everything while driving toward the city, I noticed another unsettling sight. A darkened SUV seemed to follow my every turn. It rode up behind me uncomfortably close, so close that I couldn't even see its headlights in my rear view at times. How long it had been back there, I could not say, but as paranoia swept over me, I decided to make sure it was just a coincidence. I made a few random turns. The SUV relentlessly followed. My hands became sweaty over the steering wheel. I swerved into a gas station to make a U-turn. The SUV drove past without slowing, and it was out of sight in seconds. A little overdone. Oh, you know what? I think I just skipped a page. Yes, I did. Let me go back. Look what I did. I pressed the button and I lost my spot. Hold on. I may never find it now. That's okay, I'll just pull it up. Let me pull it up on my Amazon ebook real quick. We'll just do it that way. Well, for those of you who had joined while I'm looking this up real quick, I'm reading an excerpt out of my book, dressed as the main character from my book, Autumn Haze. And I kind of, like I was telling everybody as I started, I sort of started in chapter 5, kind of where the action starts. My book's kind of a slow burn, so it starts off kind of slow. Here, I got it pulled up. So I kind of wanted to start a little bit later in the book, but once I'm done reading this part, I'll probably go on and read chapter 1 if anybody wants to listen to it, just so you can kind of hear the main character's voice and kind of get to know her aside from the action and what's going on. But hey guys, sorry I'm not even reading the screen. I don't know how to do Facebook Live, so I hope that this is doing what it's supposed to be doing. But yes, I have my glass of wine right here. I had to have like half a drink before I started doing this. I'm nervous. Okay, alright, let me go back and find the spot where I was real quick. Sorry guys. Awkward moment. Welcome to the life of Sara Fritas. Alright, chapter 5. Alright, let's see. Alright, this is the part where the SUV is relentlessly following her. Alright. A sigh of relief escaped my lungs, and I came to a complete stop. The smell of oil and tar filled my car. I put it in park to call Gemma before going on. It was already 9:30 p.m. and I knew she'd start to wonder where I was. Even then, before I could grab my phone, it dawned on me. While trying to lose the SUV, I'd driven into an unfamiliar part of downtown. I didn't recognize the buildings or street names, and this part of town was gritty, older. There was a lot of unlit empty lots around as well, and the lack of traffic on this road made me even more uneasy. I reached for my phone to pull up my GPS. A loud thud erupted from just above. The roof of my car slightly caved in, and the cab abruptly bounced. I yelped and practically came out of my seat. My phone slipped from my hand. I immediately slumped down in my seat. All was still now. Shaking, I ever so slowly shifted my car out of park. The vehicle rolled forward, and I let off the brakes, ready to hit the accelerator. A loud pop pierced my ears. The passenger side window shattered. Glass blew into my car. I mashed the accelerator and I mashed the accelerator and peeled out onto the street. I heard something heavy move across the roof of my car as I sped away. My mind couldn't grasp what was going on, and I incoherently rambled cuss words over and over as I drove. My tires screeched when I spun the wheel, taking a sharp left turn. I heard whatever it was on the roof of my car slide off, the sound so loud I swore it could have been a body. That's when squealing tires roared up from just behind. The SUV appeared in my rearview mirror again. This time, it gained on me ridiculously fast. I hit the gas. I gotta stop looking up because I'm losing my place. I hit the gas hard to pull out onto mainstream traffic. As before, the SUV shadowed my every move and more aggressively than before. Without hesitation, I went for my phone to call 911. I glanced about but found it lying on the floorboard where I dropped it. I worried my reach would not be far enough. The light ahead turned red. A car relentlessly cut across my lane. I was going too fast to slow down, and instead of braking, I let off the gas, sharply spinning the wheel. This sent my car careening into oncoming traffic. Panicked, I overcorrected, this time in the opposite direction. I ran the light. Desperate, I hit the brakes. My car skidded through the intersection. Thunderous screaming tires rang in my ear. The explosive sound of crunching metal and glass deafened me as my front and side airbags exploded from their havens. All of this was like hearing a gunshot go off in my car. I screamed, having instant flashbacks of my previous wreck almost 3 weeks earlier. I felt the right side of my car tip upright. The brute force of the impact picked my car up and sent it sailing through the intersection. I felt a weightless sensation, my car flipping. When it landed, I crashed down up against something that stopped me from colliding into the buildings. To me, the impact was earth-shattering. Sparks flared from the now bent light pole just outside of my car. In an instant, everything went quiet. My ears rang, and I burst into a frantic cry. Airbag dust filled the car and clouded my vision. As it dissipated, the faint smell of oil and smoke made me cough. I could feel the stinging of a possible cut on my right arm, but I never searched for it. My mind wouldn't focus as I aimlessly looked about. Sparks flared from the now bent light pole. Oh, I just read that part. The sound of an approaching engine caught my attention. The sound of an approaching engine caught my attention, Hopelessly hanging upside down, I peered through a broken window and watched the pursuing SUV come to a sliding halt in the middle lane. Coming into focus just beyond it, a semi-truck driver, who I assumed was the one who'd hit my car with the damage on his rig, stepped out. The door to the SUV opened. Without thinking, I frantically unbuckled my seatbelt. Oops, can't tell if I'm not covering my face with this. I'll leave like this. Okay. No, I lost my place again. Okay. Alright. By the damage on his rig. Alright, without thinking, I frantically unbuckled my seatbelt. I dropped and landed on the back of my neck and shoulders. The impact sent a shockwave of tingles and pain down my spine and legs. The taste of blood in my mouth scared me as I tried regaining my sense of direction. I rolled over and saw a tall man in a long coat emerge from the SUV with a phone to his ear. I'm getting so nervous. Okay. He noticed the semi-truck driver who neared from across the street. "I'm calling an ambulance. You should be on your way," the tall man from the SUV told the truck driver sternly. "But I'm the one who hit her. I need to stay in," the stout man replied, but stopped himself in mid-sentence. He stared blankly at the driver of the SUV. The little man's face gradually drained of color. Without another word, the truck driver grabbed his chest with one hand and ran back to his semi. "No, wait, come back, help!" I desperately shouted at him, but he didn't seem concerned by my screams. Without hesitation, the short man hopped into his truck and drove away. "I need you to make a distraction of some sort," the SUV driver spoke loudly into his phone. "My team and I are drawing too much attention." His now glowing eyes shot in my direction. His free hand tightened into a fist at his hip. Unable to pass, several cars stopped in the middle of the street. As people began getting out of their cars, I watched the driver of the SUV fidget. Ooh, this thing's getting heavy. We're gonna do this. Alright. No! Here I am losing my place! I just need to stop looking up. Okay. As people began getting out of their cars, I watched the driver of the SUV fidget. His eyes darted left and right. A loud explosion caused the ground under me to shake. People in the street screamed. A few blocks down, bright flames and the wreckage of a burning car appeared. Smoke billowed into the air surrounding nearby buildings. People jumped in their vehicles and drove off while others ran. In a matter of seconds, the streets whirled with absolute chaos. Oops. A little overdone, but it will do, the driver of the SUV said to himself as he glared at the burning car down the street and jammed his phone into his pocket. Take her! The wig is shedding. Bah! He got back into the vehicle as several other people... Wow. He got into the vehicle as several people with glowing eyes hopped out of it. They began weaving their way through traffic toward my car. The SUV sped off, leaving them. The human better not be dead, I heard one of the men shout. We can't afford another screw-up. Help, I shouted. I scooted across the roof of my car. Broken glass littered my way. I crawled to the shattered passenger window, all the while searching the twisted metal for my phone. Before looking any further, I felt my car lurch across the concrete. Sparks hopped around the windowsills. What the hell are you doing? The shouted order startled me. Trying to dump her out. What's it look like I'm doing? Another voice said. Afraid she'll bite or something? Just reach in there and grab her, damn it. Terrified and confused, I cried and went to slip through the shattered window, but the hand of a man reached through first. He grabbed me by the back of my coat and pulled me through the wreckage. A wave of relief washed over me. Thank you, I exclaimed as the man continued dragging me from the car across the sidewalk. But then I realized something wasn't right. Wait, what are you doing? Let me go, I ordered and struggled to get loose. His hold on me was like a vice. I screamed and tried wrenching my coat from his hand. He ignored my pleas to let me go and took me into a dark alleyway out of view from the street. I tried catching glimpses of his face, but his burgundy jacket hung halfway off of his shoulders as if he'd stopped in the middle of taking it off, and it blocked my view. Once we were hidden in the alleyway, the man released me. I started for the street but had to stop. Another man with freakishly glowing eyes appeared in my way. His jacket? Burgundy. This wasn't a different man. He was the same one who'd forced me in here. The speed he'd moved in my way frightened me. I jumped back as he went for me. Light from the small floodlight high above shone down on his face with his movement. I recognized him. He was one of the people who stared so intensely at me at the Red Emerald, but now his eyes illuminated fiercely behind strands of his long blonde hair. My heart pounded wildly out of control. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do. If I couldn't run, then I was going to have to fight. I ripped my brother's pocket knife from my waistband, readying the blade. The man moved. I had no time to react. He shoved me. I fell to one side and scrambled to my feet. In that short time, the man had taken hold of my coat along with several locks of my hair. He pulled me to him. I let loose an ear-piercing scream. Shut up, he shouted and moved me through the alleyway. Without hesitation, I twisted around with the knife and slashed at him. He snatched his hand away and avoided the blade. I stood and pushed past him toward the street. In the alleyway entrance stood another figure, followed by 4 more moving in behind him. Altogether, there were 6. I came to a sliding halt before them. Good evening, Latresma, a man with heavy brown hair spoke up from the front of the group. I didn't recognize him. No use trying to run, he continued. You're only holding us up. I heard the man with the burgundy jacket slink up behind me. He wrapped an arm around my waist and held me against his chest. I sliced at his forearm with my knife, but this time he didn't react. She's a feisty little thing, Eric, he warned the man who stood before me. The dark-haired man, Eric, stepped up to me. Well, I wouldn't expect anything different from a former leader of the vampire nation. Okay. I'm not sure if I was going to read the rest of this chapter because it gets kind of gory. Not too bad, though. I don't like writing too much of that stuff. It's kind of gross. If you're interested in listening to maybe 5 or 6 more pages of this excerpt, figure out what's going on, you're welcome to stay. And after that, I'll read chapter 1, which is a little less intense, but kind of gives you an insight to the main character, Autumn. You kind of get to know her a little bit before all this craziness starts happening. So, but if anybody wants to listen, feel free to. Somebody's recording this for me, so when I get off, I'll post it. And if you don't want to listen to it all right now, you can listen to it later. So, but anyway, here we go. Let's see. Oops, I skipped ahead. Hold on. All right. I dove for Eric with my knife, slicing the side of his face. He backhanded my wrist, and this sent the knife sliding across the alleyway. I heard it bounce off the brick wall and hit the ground somewhere close by. The hand instantly throbbed, and I swore he'd broken it. The man named Eric took a few steps closer, his eyes ceasing to glow as he came into the light of a nearby wall lamp. I could see him clearly now. The gash I'd left on his shallow cheekbones shrank, and I had to blink twice to be sure of what I saw. He smiled deviously as the wound vanished from his face. I noticed something else too, something strange about his teeth. As I watched, his canines grew. Now I'm trying to read all this stuff. Okay. I drew a slow and quivering breath as his tall frame engulfed me. I shrank back into the man holding me. The one named Eric cradled my face in his clasp, and I felt his thumb wipe away tears I hadn't realized I'd shed. The three men and the woman closed in behind him. I cautiously watched them over Eric's shoulder. They smiled at me, but it was in no way comforting. "Dear Latresma," Eric cooed at me. "My name is Autumn," I snapped in tears. "You have the wrong person." He smiled and bared his unbelievably distinct fangs at me. His chortle rang in my ears along with the others, their laughter like a low hum. "Oh, I'm afraid not," Eric spoke again. "It's been too long since our search for you began, Lady Latresma. There is no doubt of who you are. You will be taken care of, I can promise that." The others hummed a hushed laugh again. The man holding me let me go. Eric walked into me, yanking my arm as he moved by. He dragged me deeper into the alleyway darkness. The others followed right on top of us. I screamed, bit, cursed, and fought to escape, but nothing I did affected my assailants. I was taken down an opening in the concrete. It might have been a manhole, but I couldn't be sure. It was so much darker there that I thought I'd gone blind. The only things reassuring me that I hadn't lost my sight were the illuminated pairs of eyes floating about and hovering around like fireflies. I sobbed and struggled against Eric's painful grip. Shrieks echoed around us, surfacing from somewhere far within the space we'd entered. I cringed at the unsettling noises and slipped on something. At the same time, a hand yanked me to my feet. A stench gradually filled the air. Although I couldn't make it out, I could almost taste it. It made my stomach roll. Ahead a few yards, light poured onto the floor from the I think I needed a sip of wine. I'm like losing my cool. Okay. Guess what? I just lost my place again. Okay. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Alright, here we go. Okay. Let's see. I slipped on something. At the same time, a hand yanked me to my feet. A stench gradually filled the air. I already read that part. Okay, here we go. But once what was hidden in the dark was revealed by the light, I wish there hadn't been any light at all. I would have rather remained oblivious to my surroundings the whole way through the corridor. Under the floodlight's rays, I saw blood, fresh and old, splattered all over. Oh, I guess I should say, warning, this is a little graphic, but I don't go too deep, so don't worry. Plug your ears for like 3 seconds. Piled against the hallway door were what appeared to be dismembered mannequin parts. But as we neared, the body parts seemed frighteningly real, and an unbearable smell brought a gag reflex. In the corner, a man laid mangled on the floor. His arms were missing, and he shook and bled out. With the quiet, gurgling noises he made and the amount of blood oozing onto the concrete floor around him, I knew he was dying. Looking at him, I became lightheaded. 5 shadow figures soon gathered around him. Motionlessly, they watched him suffer, possibly pleased by his pain. As we passed by, the shadowy group dove in on him like sharks. I could see him tearing up. Oh no, I could see them tearing him apart. The man shouted as blood sprayed across the wall. I desperately fought the urge to throw up, but I couldn't look away. At that moment, I wondered if this was all just a hallucination, a nightmare. "Get her secure, please," said a woman. Okay, Bruiser wants to go up here. Hang on. All right, old man, come here. All right. Okay, well, Bruiser's gonna hang out and help me. He said he's mad that I didn't invite him sooner. All right, Bruce, sit down. I don't want you to move around too much. Oh, I lost my place again. No, this is a recurring thing for me. Okay. Yeah, where did I go? "Get her secure, please," said a voice. "Shane will be here within the hour," said another one. "Just throw her in there for now. He'll deal with her." "Whatever you say," Eric replied. He shoved me into the dimly lit concrete room. Blech. I tripped over my shoes and fell on a tangled blanket. A light clang resounded in the room as something small and metal bounced atop the floor. "You might need that," said one man to me. Another in the group burst into a mad laugh. There I found my pocket knife gleaming in the dim light, where it came to a rest in the corner of the room. Corner of the room. The door clanged shut. I heard it being locked from the outside. I sat dazed in the middle of the room while tears streamed down my face. My body quivered uncontrollably. I dashed for the metal door and banged on it in a panic. When my screams went ignored, I collapsed on the faded blue blanket. I gathered my knees in and wept into my arms. I couldn't grasp what was happening and told myself this wasn't real. It was a nightmare. It had to be. But if this was a dream, it was like no other I'd ever had. Oh, look at me losing my place. Oh, wait, I can do this. Hold on. Yes, I think this worked. Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh yeah. My screaming pleas went ignored. I collapsed on a faded blue blanket. I gathered my knees in and wept into my arms. I couldn't grasp what was happening and told myself this wasn't real. It was a nightmare. It had to be. But if this was a dream, it was like no other I'd ever had. There was nothing exceptional about the dreams I had. My lack of subconscious creativity was probably due to my uneventful lifestyle. I'd never dreamt of being able to fly or breathe underwater. Instead, my dreams were built around monotonous concepts. Hell, my nightmares weren't even scary, just things that would happen to me on any given day. Running late for school, getting in a fight with my older sister, or losing my car in a vast parking lot. That was as scary as my nightmares ever got. But this was something else. My name is Autumn Hayes, and until this exact point in my life, there was nothing exceptional about me either. I was a junior at Westland High School in Chicago, Illinois, where I grew up. I lived with my 3 siblings and my parents. We had a dog named Bandit. When I really tried, I kept an A- average in school. My favorite color was mint green, and my best friend's name was Gemma. The only things that kept me worrying were figuring out what to wear to school the next day and wondering when my friends and I would get to hang out again, or being on time for cheer practice for school. That's all there was to say about me, but not anymore. As I sat alone in that darkened room, listening to people being slaughtered just outside the door, countless thoughts raced through my mind. And then it hit me. The realization that I might have known something like this would happen made me even more sick to my stomach. Everything had led up to this. All the strange and horrible things that had happened in the past week leading right up to my abduction. Everything had a connection, and it all started with that dream. Okay, so that's the end of the excerpt. And then if you want, I can read chapter 1, but like I said, it's not as action-packed as that part is. So actually part of that is the prologue of my book. I took an excerpt from that chapter, and that's the prologue, and there's also 2 smaller excerpts from two of the characters that you meet later on, but I decided to kind of skip over that. But I decided to read, the part where Autumn's the main character, but you'll see in the prologue where there's several other characters have a point of view. But anyway, I'll read chapter 1, and then we'll see what happens after that. I won't stay on all night, but Bruiser wants me to stay on all night. He keeps pawing me. It's okay, Bruce. Say hi, guys. This is the guy that tries to take over the world. He's winning. Okay. Chapter 1. Awaken. 13 nights earlier, February 4th. It's okay, buddy. Sit down. It's okay. It was the most vivid and unusual dream I'd ever had, as if someone had planted it in my head like a seed, and its roots grew, overtaking my entire subconscious. In it, I floated weightlessly above a familiar city. My city, Chicago. Cars zipped back and forth silently on the narrow streets below. The lights of the buildings created a yellow halo over the city. No one seemed aware of me, but I could feel a presence. Hovering helplessly, I even further. I broke through a thick layer of rain clouds stretching across the horizon like a ghostly blanket. I shivered. A chilled mist clung to my skin. The city disappeared from sight under the haze, and my ascent halted with my legs dead. It confused me even more than my surroundings. Tempest, she whispered. A breeze blew and intensified until an angry hurricane blustered around me. The clouds lightened to a perfect powdery white, billowing just below as the sky brightened. Night turned to day right before my eyes. At the peak of the storm, my hair whipped about my shoulders, stinging my skin. Despite the rumbling wind, I heard the motherly voice again. This time, the voice whispered in English. Her possibly French accent sounded full, sultry even. "Wake up, Aden," the voice said my name deliberately. The storm rose. The sun rose from the clouds below, its magnitude an explosion against the sky. I shielded my face. My right eye wasn't covered, and it burned so terribly it woke me from my dream. My eyes snapped open. I broke out in chill bumps and a cold sweat. Not sure whether I was still dreaming or not, I sat up in bed. The burning sensation in my eye morphed into an out-of-control itch. Irritated, I rubbed my eyelid, and this caused it to tingle. I spotted my alarm clock. 12:01 a.m. Too tired to understand my dream, I lay back down and rolled over, dozing off. The next time I woke up, it was a noise that brought me... Ooh! Ah! Why does this keep happening? I barely touched my screen and it jumps like 5 pages. This is so annoying. Hold on. Alright. 12:01. Alright. Too tired to understand my weird dream, I lay back down and rolled over, dozing off. The next time I woke up, it was a noise that brought me from the shallow pond of my sleep. Wide awake now, I couldn't be sure whether I'd heard a sound or if just I'd dreamt it. I sat still and held my breath, straining my ears to listen. Normally, I would have figured it was one of my family members rustling around downstairs. My house was never quiet, not even this late on a Friday night. With my mom always running behind my noisy little brother, my siblings and me dueling out, my dog barking at every noise, and my dad clanging around while cleaning his knife collection, my house could sound like absolute chaos at times. But this night was different. We'd spent the evening down the street helping my grandma clean her house. After making dinner, she offered for us to spend the night. I'd volunteered to go back to study and watch over Bandit, our partially blind old Yorkie. You didn't hear the old part. Tonight, I was the only one in the house except for Bandit. He usually slept on my parents' bed, but for tonight he lay sound asleep on the plush rug under my window. There came another muffled noise from downstairs. This time I was sure of it. Remembering I was home alone, I broke out in a sweat all over again. Call 911, I thought. As my palms swiped the surface of my nightstand, I shuddered. My phone wasn't there. Instantly, I realized I'd left it downstairs after studying. I clenched my fist. I sat up slow and steady to avoid making any sounds as I moved. I heard another muted disturbance. My eyes went to Bandit. He remained still, unstartled. I cautiously tugged myself from my tangled covers. My eyes scanned my room while I tried to think. To the left of my bed was my vanity, where I spent many hours doing homework or talking on the phone. On my right was the front wall of the house, with my one and only window. It faced a street but was hidden from view by a tall eastern redbud in the front yard. The thought of jumping from that second-story window crossed my mind, but then I remembered that it wasn't even possible. My dad had been working to fix all the windows in the house, which were painted shut years ago, but he didn't get around to working on the ones in our rooms yet. I jerked on the window pane anyway, but no matter how hard I tried, the window wouldn't budge. As I peered out, I realized that my house wasn't exactly built to accommodate a second-story escape plan anyway. I tiptoed to my older sister Jericho's room next door, then tenderly walked across the hall into my brother Jacoby's room. Like mine, the windows in their rooms were still painted shut, and I ended up nearly spraining my wrist while trying to wrench them open. I stood in Jacoby's room feeling helpless. I thought to break a window, but worried I wasn't strong enough to shatter the double pane, which in turn would draw the attention of whoever was in the house. My only option was to leave from somewhere downstairs, but I needed something to protect myself. What, buddy? I went straight to Jacoby's bed. He'd inherited my dad's infatuation with pocket knives and kept an exceptionally large one hidden under his mattress. He never let me forget where it was, just in case, he'd say, but I admit I never thought I'd have to go looking for it. After reaching into the wedge between Jacoby's mattress and bed frame, I wrenched the knife from its hiding place. The pocket knife's case was thick, smooth steel with a mainly onyx interface and an overly textured slate plastic down the middle. It was also larger and heavier than any I'd ever held. I paused in the hallway with it in my hand and listened before sliding the 7-inch blade out of its metal sheath. It clicked at its full extent. A muffled noise floated up the steps. I had to set Bruiser down because now he's getting all antsy and thirsty, buddy. Alright. Okay. I'm sure you're all wondering why my bed looks like the bed of a 12-year-old, all this pink and stuff, so just, if you know me, then you should, totally understandable. So I am 12 at heart. Alrighty, so, thanks, Brew, you made me lose my place again. Okay. I paused in the hallway with the knife in my hand and listened before sliding the 7-inch blade out of its metal sheath. It clicked at its full extent. A muffled noise floated up the steps. This brought with it an uneasiness that was hard to overcome. I kept telling myself that maybe my dad or my brother had left my grandma's late. Ugh, this wig's killing me. Left my grandma's late and came home for something in the house, but that thought still wouldn't calm me. I heard whispers. I forced myself to ease down the first step of the carpeted staircase, all the while holding the knife tightly and ready to swing. But I should have known to skip over that first step, the only one that creaked under pressure. The noise nearly shook me from the inside. I waited on the unruly step, whispering. The whispering I thought I'd heard stopped. My grip on the knife grew as I knelt and peered into the main room. The light from the moon and street lamps pouring through the windows wasn't near enough to see everything, but from where I stood, the living room and the kitchen appeared vacant. Except for the few expected shadows looming in the corners, the rest of the house appeared empty, but I couldn't be sure. I gathered a false sense of bravery and slinked down the staircase in a crouched position. My hair stuck to my shoulders and lower back from the sweat soaking through my tank top. My heart was so loud in my ears I wondered if my neighbors could hear it. I made it to the bottom and stood. My trembling hand slid over the railing and mashed the light switch panel. Nearly every light downstairs flickered on. This confirmed that at least no one was in the living room. I peeked nervously over the two half walls on my right that divided the living room and kitchen into the dining room. I focused in on the back of the house. There, the light spilled through the sitting room and into the shallow hallway leading to my parents' room. No movement anywhere, no one in sight. There was nowhere else for someone to hide. I finally knew I was alone. A weight lifted off my chest. I let the knife rest at my side. I went to the kitchen feeling stupid for getting worked up over nothing, but grateful that it had been nothing. I snatched my cell phone off the table, killed the lights, and started up the steps. In my peripheral, one of the curtains on the front window moved. I stopped in place and whirled around to face them. I found the smaller front window of my house cracked open, a wind lightly blowing the curtains. The window frame... Where am I? The window lock lay just on the floor below. I held my ground at first, but forced myself toward it. The lacy the lacy curtains blew into me, and it made me shiver. Oh my God, there's 21 people watching this. I'm gonna read the rest like this. Thought there was gonna be like 5 people in here. I lost my place again. I'm sorry. Okay. Alright, the curtains blew into me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. In my peripheral, one of the curtains on the front window moved. I stopped in place and whirled around to face them. I found the smaller front window of my house cracked open, the wind lightly blowing the curtains. The window frame lock laid on the floor just below. I held my ground at first, but forced myself toward it. The lacy curtains blew into me, and it made me shiver. I hesitated before closing the window when I noticed a dark mass in the nook of my neighbor's roof just across the street. I disregarded it until it seemed to move. Out of the corners of my eyes, several more shadows moved around the rooftops closest to me. They darted behind surrounding houses out of sight. My eyes tried following them all at once, but they were gone before I could tell what they were. But the shadow on the roof across the street remained. I leaned into the windowsill to get a better look. With a few passing seconds, 2 tiny white beads appeared in the head of the figure, and they gleamed back eerily. My entire body went numb and tingly with another adrenaline rush. When the feeling left my hands, I accidentally dropped the knife. In the time it took me to bend and grab it, the figure on the roof vanished. Convinced I was seeing things, I slipped my phone into the back pocket of my pants and shut the window. I picked the broken window lock off the ground and set it in the windowsill. The curtains overlapped one another, and I drew them in. Inhaling deeply to settle my anxious stomach, I returned to the staircase. Before heading back up, I gave everything one last check. I crawled back in bed, set my phone on the nightstand, and hid the knife under my pillow, and lay there wide awake, unable to calm myself. I don't remember falling asleep when my alarm ripped me from my slumber. My eyes felt swollen and burned. I frowned and swore heavy iron bars were strapped to my limbs as I moved under my warm covers. The sunlight made me squint. It peered through my blinds and sheer watermelon pink curtains as if to say, "Good morning," to me. How I loathed leaving the comfort of my bed in the morning, especially on a Saturday. While rolling over in bed, I turned off the alarm on my phone and read a text from my best friend. "Hey Autumn, can't wait to see you at practice today." I yawned like a bear leaving hibernation. This is kind of the parts where it's not as interesting, but this is more of where you kind of get to know the character Autumn and kind of see into her life and kind of what it's like to be her, la la la, you know. But there's still some twists and turns in here, some creepy stuff. Not too creepy though. I don't like writing creepy stuff. I mean, I do write creepy stuff. Anyways, I'll keep talking. So, anyway, I yawned like a bear, leaving hibernation. My arms hit the wooden headboard during my stretch. While I showered, I thought back to the night before. The dream, the scare I'd gotten from an imaginary intruder, the things I saw on my neighbor's roof, it all felt like one big nightmare. As I got out of the shower, I hung my baby blue and white, stiff to the point of being uncomfortable, cheerleading outfit on the door. A side rose in my chest at the sight of the white streak mixed in with the taupe and ash blonde of my hair. Frustrated, I took the half-empty hair dye box off the sink, threw it in the trash, and turned on the blow dryer. I'd had that white streak in my hair ever since birth. The taunting that came with it subsided as I got older, but still somehow followed me around like a lurking shadow wherever I went. The streak grew right in the front of my head and right into the course, and ran its course through the wavy hair that fell over the right side of my face, or whichever way I parted my hair. I couldn't seem to get rid of the stupid thing. I even tried dyeing it the night before. The color stayed in when I washed it in the sink, but had washed right out during my shower this time. I relived the dream, the noises, the strange things on my neighbor's roof as I dabbed a little eye makeup on, but something made me stop. I leaned in closer to my reflection. My left eye was its normal smoky green, but something was weird about my right eye. It strangely looked like a hazy blue. The change wasn't obvious unless I leaned in nearly face to face with my reflection, but to me the color difference was hard to overlook. My jaw dropped as I remembered the burning sensation I'd felt in that eye after my weird dream just hours earlier. Baffled, I grabbed my gym bag and headed downstairs. "Honey, I don't see it," Mom replied when I tried to show her my eye. She took her car keys off the kitchen counter. My dad, sister, and brothers were still sleeping in at Grandma's house. Mom had come home early. Her champagne blonde hair whipped about as she briskly walked by. She was always in a rush. After 4 kids, my mom was a no-nonsense type, still thoughtful and caring, except for when she's in a hurry. "You're not looking close enough, Mom," I persisted while rummaging through my gym bag to be sure I'd thrown in a change of clothes. "Autumn, people's eyes don't change color overnight. They look the same to me," she said as she hurried to the garage. "Mom, I swear, this one turned blue," I insisted and pointed at my right eye. "Just look!" "Baby, I'm going to be late for lunch with Stacy, and you're going to be late for practice," she said. I sighed at her response and started to leave. "Autumn, if you're that worried about it, make yourself a doctor's appointment, okay?" she urged. "Not unless I'm dying," I mumbled. "Oh, Autumn, don't be so dramatic. Also, will you take your school books off the kitchen table before your dad gets back? You know how much he hates clutter." Upset she wouldn't take me seriously, I snatched my French textbooks off the table without a word. I'd left them out the night before to study for my up-and-coming AP French test. I knew the test would be easy, but I'd skimmed over it a few pages just to brush up. French came to me naturally. When I started foreign language classes in middle school, my teachers said I picked it up freakishly fast. Jacoby had even brought home a college-level textbooks for me to study from. To me, it was irrelevant. I didn't think I'd ever use French outside of school, and I wished it was math I could pick up on more easily. "Bandit's been acting weird," I muttered as he whimpered and ran from me for the 3rd time that morning. "Oh, I went to tell you, someone left the front window halfway open last night. The lock was broken. I found it on the floor." "Really?" Mom asked, alarmed. "That's weird. It's old, though. Must have popped off when your dad was working on the windows yesterday. He probably left it open by accident. I'll take care of it after lunch." "Speaking of that," I said, "do you know when Dad is supposed to fix the windows in our rooms next? We'd be screwed if there was a fire or if someone broke in the house in the middle of the night. I mean, who paints a window shut anyway?" She sighed. "He promised to work on them after he and everyone got home from Grandma's today, but you know how he is." "I have to go, baby," she moaned. "Okay, see you later," I said and gathered my things. "Love you." "Love you too. Have fun at practice," she called over her shoulder. On my way out, I texted Jimmy to let her know I was leaving. I hopped in my 2-door Acura and maneuvered around Jacoby's Camaro parked in the driveway. Sorry, I missed my Camaro. I eyed my brother's car enviously as I backed out of the garage. How I wish he'd let me borrow that thing on the weekends. Soon the weather would be warm enough to use that sunroof of his. I sped to the high school where I met up with the rest of the cheer squad. Before joining everyone in the middle of the gym, I raked my long, side-swept bangs over my right eye to conceal my newly blue eye. I spotted Gemma's lightly freckled, fresh face in the group of girls. I don't know why I wrote that like that. I passed the guys, we jokingly called them the yell leaders, who stretch across the bleachers. Practice was long and grueling as usual, but it always pumped me up. It made me feel alive. If it wasn't for cheerleading, I'd never get off my lazy butt. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Lacey announced with her vibrant southern accent when practice was over. We need to keep practicing for the pep rally and basketball game on the 17th. She went on about how important it was to be on time for practice next week and on and on. Finally, she said, "Okay, I'll see y'all next week." Gemma approached, her chic inverted bob dancing about as she walked. I smiled at her and took my gym bag from the bench, slinging it over my shoulder. "Well, I heard you and Devron are going on your first official date tonight," she said as we left the locker room, but sounded less than enthusiastic. "That's exciting." "Yeah, he's picking me up at 7:30, I said. "I can't wait." I grinned eagerly, but despite worrying about her flat tone. You sure about that guy?" she asked with narrowed eyes. I frowned. I wanted her to be excited for me. Devron was a senior, a guy I'd secretly had a crush on for a while. Well, it wasn't so much a secret anymore. I was far more excited than I'd led Gemma to believe, but I didn't want anyone to know how embarrassingly infatuated I was with him. He sat beside me in Algebra 2 class. He wasn't overly tall, but he made up for it in good looks. We never talked, so I didn't know much about him until this week when he unexpectedly leaned over his desk and asked me to hang out with him sometime. "Yeah, he seems like a nice guy," I said and tried to laugh as genuinely as possible, but her question had me on edge. "We've only been talking for a week, though." "Okay, give it some time," she advised and drew her words out. "Let me know how your date goes. Oh, some of the girls want to eat at that cute little cafe on the Riverwalk for lunch. Want to go with us?" She didn't have to ask twice. Lunch on the Riverwalk turned into an all-day event. After a movie and a little light shopping, we decided on dinner at a place downtown called the Red Emerald. It wasn't much to look at, and they never checked IDs there, but we didn't go for the drinks. It was the steak that melted in our mouths, the steak that tasted like each and every slice had been individually seasoned that kept us coming. I can safely bet they made the best steak in the entire Chicago area. During the meal, I reminded myself to keep my eyes low, avoid eye contact with my friends, as I'd done earlier in the day, too afraid that one of them might ask me about my right eye. This led me to think back about last night's dream again and the things on the roofs across the street. I'd been so busy all day I'd forgotten about them. I stared blankly at my plate as I thought. I tried to remember the voice of the woman in the dream, and it took me a long minute before I could remember exactly, but when it came to me, my eyes widened as I translated the voice from my dream in my head. She had said, "C'est ton temps." It was French, for "it is your time." "Autumn, what is up with you?" Gemma asked as she held back a laugh across the table. "Nothing," I replied, snapping out of it, looking up from my plate. "I'm just really full." She laughed as one of the other girls continued, telling the group about her run-in with her crush at school Friday. The waiter brought us our checks and left. I set out some cash and glanced about, my mind still wandering. I felt someone staring at me from across the restaurant. Looking up, my eyes met those of an unfamiliar tan face. He sat alone in a booth at the back wall, his eyes wide and locked in my direction. At first I wasn't sure who he was staring at, and as my eyes skimmed around, I tried to figure it out. When I got the feeling it was me, I looked back to where he was sitting, and he wasn't there anymore. Curious, I let my eyes roam the restaurant for him as my friends started talking about prom. I found him again, this time walking out the front door while adjusting his coat. He peered over his shoulder at me, and something about his eyes changed. They seemed to shine or reflect the light from the bar, but in a way that made me feel as though I were coming out of my skin. His eyes, they just didn't look normal. I sprang out of my seat as he left the restaurant. "Autumn, are you sure you're all right?" Gemma asked as I stood over the table, an uneasiness filling my stomach. "Can we go now?" I asked while gathering my things. "I feel like I'm starting to lose my mind a little." Okay," one of the other girls said, and waved the waiter over. "What's wrong?" Gemma asked as everyone reached for their purses. I lightly shook my head at her without looking her direction. I'm seeing things." Apparently, I stumbled my way around the sentence. Feeling crazy after the way she stared after me, I added, "Nothing, it's nothing, let's go." As everyone else pulled out their wallets to pay, I wondered if I really was losing my mind. So that's chapter 1, and I'm not going to read any more because you have to buy the book to read the rest. You can go to, as everybody already knows, Amazon.com. You can either buy the paperback or ebook. The only thing that I was kind of sad about the paperback was the art that I have in it. That's not my art. It's the Lacey James Foster. His art that I inserted in there turned out black and white, and I thought they were going to be in color, and it's not. But they're in color on the ebook, so you can buy, whichever one. Trying to think of anything else to tell you. Working on an audiobook. The actress that's working on the audiobook. Oh no, my phone is starting to die. So I'll make this quick. But the actress that's working on the audiobook is only on chapter 6, so it'll probably be another 2 months before she's finished. But I'll announce that, and I'll put it on Facebook, for everybody, so that y'all can give that a listen. And I think if you buy the ebook, they're partnered with Audible, so if you buy the ebook, you can also jump back and forth and listen, and then if you're at work and then you come home, you can read. So it's kind of cool. But thank you guys so much for listening to me. Oh yeah, the one other thing I was going to tell you, with the whole virus and everything, I was working with Novel trying to get a book signing there, but with everything that's going on, they're not really open. Like, they're open, but they're not open. So that's probably going to be laid off for a little while, but that's okay. But anyways, thank y'all for listening, and if y'all have any questions or there anything you want to ask or make fun of me for, I don't care. But thank y'all for listening to some of my book. I'm kind of super embarrassed, but there it is, another day. I'm ready to take this wig off and drink some wine. What y'all doing? Okay, well, thank you guys. Yeah, and if I miss you on here, I'm sorry I didn't read all your comments. You can shoot me a message on Facebook Messenger if you want to ask anything about my book. And you've already seen I've plastered it everywhere. I know it looks really big. It is kind of big, but my Aunt Linda read it and said it was not that big because she's used to reading 1,000-page books, and mine's 321 or something like that. 321. So. But anyway, if you like to read big books, then mine's probably right up your alley. If you kind of get bored after 10 pages and you're like, well, I only wanted a 20-page book, probably don't want to buy my book. But anyways, again, thank you guys. I love y'all, and I'll go back through and read your comments, and I'll comment on them and stuff and answer any questions I probably missed because I was too busy doing this. Bye, guys. I appreciate y'all. I don't know how to turn it off. Yes, I do. Okay. Bye.